Hello, committee chair, members of the committee. My name is Adam Smith, project manager in the city manager's office. Here today with a presentation on the restatement of city and successor agency capital assets. Recommendations for the Finance and Governance Committee recommends that the City Council receives and files a report on the restatement of city and Oxnard Community Development Commission successor agency capital assets. A little bit of background: the successor agency, which started in 2012 with the formal wind down of all redevelopment agencies in the state of California, has reached an important milestone in the winding down of the affairs of that former redevelopment agency. In 2023, the successor agency completed the disposition of all real estate property authorized in the successor agency's long-range property management plan, which is approved by both the County Oversight Board as well as the State Department of Finance. Analysis of the Finance Department's remaining capital assets account records of the successor agency determined that there was a list of 49 records that represented about 28 million in capitalization accounting entries have been reported in the successor agency's annual financial statements. Now, the former redevelopment agency's pre-dissolution contribution to improvements to the city property, which is what these 49 assets were not filtered from the successor agency general ledger accounts at the time of dissolution and redevelopment in 2012. So these improvements to the city's property were incorrectly reported as assets of the successor agency instead of assets of the city. As a result, the successor agency's capital asset records have been overstated, and the city's capital assets have been understated since 2012. So starting in late 2023 and into 2024, city staff members began analyzing and using best efforts to research and validate the sources of the successor agency capital assets records to confirm the proper correcting accounting treatment for them. Staff identified and examined the general ledger project activity reports and of each identified capital asset record. And the project activity reports provides insights into original funding sources, including payments to vendors, labor costs, other expenditures, etc. City staff research concluded that of the 49 assets of the listed as successor agency, 27 records with a current book value of approximately 17.8 million represented pre-dissolution redevelopment agency expenditures that were contributions or improvements to city property. A couple examples, or a few examples, would be Cypress Park improvements, Saviors Road improvements, and Southwinds basketball courts. So these assets will be reclassified as city assets in the upcoming 2024 ACFR by a correction and restatement of the city's beginning net position. An additional 22 remaining successor agency asset records with a book value of approximately 10.8 million lacked clear documentation from the available project budget and activity reports. Now, these expenditures, important to note, these expenditures occurred several decades before the 2012 redevelopment dissolution in the state, and therefore conclusive information about some of the project expenditures is no longer readily available. These expenditures were possibly or even probably contributions to city infrastructure. The 2024 correcting accounting entries err on the side of caution. These assets that cannot be identified will be removed from the successor agency accounts, but will not be reclassified as city assets because of inconclusive information. The 2024 ACFR will look to resolve and clear these misclassified capital asset records from successor agency financial records. The restatements have no monetary compensation since the redevelopment agency expenditures were appropriated as contributions and improvements to city property in the original year of their expenditure. The proposed accounting corrections are administrative in nature and not subject to approval by the VCCOB, which is the County Oversight Board for former redevelopment agencies in the county, since they correct accounting entries that originated prior to 2012 redevelopment agency dissolution. The 2024 ACFR will update and correct the beginning net positions of the city and successor agency by removing the 28 million in misclassified capital assets. 17.8 million of these assets will be added to the city capital asset balance. and the successor agency's internal general ledger financial records and published external financial statements will now be in sync with the state and the county approved LRPMP. By clearing these misclassified capital assets from the city's financial reports, the successor agency completes another milestone in the state mandate to wind down the affairs of the former redevelopment agency. Finally, ending with the recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee recommends that the City Council receives and files a report on the restatement of city and successor agency capital assets. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.